Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Uncanny X-Men issue number 4. We finally get some answers, like serious answers, and loving it. The book just got so much better. Not that it was bad before. Oh, shut up. Let's get into the book. All right, Matthew Rosenberg, Kelly Thompson, and Ed Brisson are the 3 writers. Pere Perez is on art. Rachel Rosenberg is on colors. VC's Joe Caramonga on letters. And Elizabeth Torque does the cover. There are some variant covers by John Taylor Christopher in Hyuk Lee, and Gerardo Zeffino. All right, and of course the X-Men were created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So, basically the Horsemen of Salvation are going around and they're destroying like oil platforms and all sorts of things that are basically bad for us. This actually became something of a global eco-terror kind of thing. The Horsemen of Salvation are trying to save us from ourselves because of the carbon footprint that we're leaving. Now, on the surface, this just sounds so silly, right? But when you really think about it, oh God, why aren't there really X-Men and Horsemen of Salvation trying to save us from ourselves, from the eco-terror situation that we've caused? Wow. And you know what? Maybe you'll be lucky or luck out and get to hear me talking about some... privatized gains and socialized costs in the current market system that we have. In the meantime, we're not going to be talking about economics. We will be talking about the freaking X-Men being a bunch of jerks. That's right. The X-Men are being jerks to the young X-Men. And I say just call them the young X-Men. Generation X is so outdone, all that stuff, whatever. No. We need young X-Men. That's what we need. We need these kids, all right? Like, Landslide isn't technically ready yet. Anybody who's still thinking, well, I don't really want to make them mad because, you know, they're technically the bosses. You're just, you know, but he still acts the way he acts. He's just a petulant little child, all right? But Armor is in charge of this team for the most part. You still got Pixie. She's still a naysayer, but everybody else is in like Flynn, man. They want to help. And they don't want to just be on garbage detail and things like that. I mean, for the past 3 issues or so, I've been seeing that. The young X-Men are just treated like, you know, second-class citizens, second-class mutants, for crying out loud. It's really just not cool. You're not going to trust these kids. I mean, you think about how old these kids are, and then you think about how old the original X-Men were, including Jean Grey, when they got into this and they started kicking some booty. And that includes Kitty Pryde, too, for all intents and purposes. These X-Men, they need to be ready. And they're never going to get ready if they're not made to be ready, if they're not let to be ready. Send them on some freaking missions, for crying out loud. Anyhow, so Armor is going to take over. And also there's a part where Armor actually she makes her armor go super huge and cover a whole bunch of people. Meanwhile, Jean Grey fakes their deaths with a mental illusion. There may be many people who are saying, whoa, since when could Armor make her armor that big? Well, she has done it once before, recently, earlier on in the year in the Cable series. So go and check out the run of Cable. I don't remember which issue it was, or you could just check out my my reviews for Cable. I don't even remember which writer it was who did it. I think Ed Brisson may have actually done that one. I don't remember. Anyhow, yeah, Armor has done that once before. So this is technically the second recorded time of her doing that I've noticed at least. Anyhow, so probably one of the best lines up in here. When Nate Gray, who is actually in charge of the X-Men of Salvation, the Horsemen of Salvation, he goes and says, listen, we're going to go out here, we're going to do all this stuff, and the Senator and Kitty Pryde and Apocalypse, you guys just chill out here and you get to witness what we're doing. She says, Kitty Pryde says he's bluffing. He can't possibly be powerful enough to project his message into every mind on the planet. Cassandra Nova did it recently in X-Men Red, but she did it with a technological boost by Forge. Emma Frost did it, but she also had the backup of the 3 surviving Cuckoo sisters, right? So one person who would actually project his mind into every single mind, project his thoughts into every single mind out there all by himself. Even Professor X probably couldn't do that. Jean Grey can't do that. She could do that with Cerebro, you know? But Nate Gray does that. But it's funny. Kitty Pryde's in doubt. And it's just interesting because the devil himself, Apocalypse, says, child, he has Magneto on a leash like a dog. has turned off your powers with a word and has Apocalypse bound in chains, and you still doubt his power? I love that line. That whole sentence, that whole word bubble is just perfect there. Speaking of word bubbles, I wonder, there was one thing where there's a very thin panel of Legion talking, and by talking I mean he's blabbering, and some of the words are actually scrunched in there so tight that you're actually missing like one L in all. You know what I'm saying? And a couple of the other words, they're scrunched, and you have some letters going off the panel. It looks like it's a mistake, but it also might not be. I'm not entirely sure because it is part of Legion's psychobabble. So maybe it was meant to be that way. Maybe they just didn't leave quite nearly enough room for the story to be done that way. But either way, that's it just looked funny that right there of all times the letters were actually falling off the page, you know? Anyway, really good book. I'm so surprised to see them actually making an eco-terror threat the main problem that everybody's trying to fix in here. And even like Blob, of all things, of all people, actually goes and makes sense. Blob says, are you going to stand in our way of trying to protect the Earth? Or are you just going to, whatever, go do your thing and, just don't get in our way? And the X-Men stop for a second, and Jean stops, and she's thinking, he's right. Blob was right, guys. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. But this is the first time since his creation in the 60s that Blob has actually been right. I'm just saying. Nobody, look, Cyclops was right, Magneto is right, all these different people, we always say these guys were right, right? No one has ever said Blob was right. No one will ever write that on a wall. That's all I'm saying. And yet somehow that's in these pages. Uncanny X-Men issue number 4 of whatever the frick volume this is. First time for everything, right? My favorite part has to be the young X-Men. They're actually going to try and come into their own. And I'm really looking forward to that being a major aspect of this book, or get their own books. But again, Gen X, been done. Let's do young X-Men. Let's just do something different. Call themselves a different team. And if Armor is leading that team, I will read the hell out of that comic book. Anyway, guys, really solid issue, man. Got a whole bunch of questions answered. I'm sure some people might not like the answers. Again, it does seem odd that just eco-terror, that's the big thing. But when you think about it, God, what worse threat could there be? Celestials coming from space. It's like, but we have eco-terror, man. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.